Greetings, everybody. Let's see. Yep, we're on. Okay, this is an overview for Chapter 3. Just want to give you a few things to take a look at so you can get an overarching idea as you're going through the details of this particular chapter. The first thing you want to make sure you understand is what even the concept of salutary neglect is. So for that, let's open up Learning Objective 1, looking at this real quick. So you want to define what salutary neglect is, and the definition of salutary neglect can be found here about halfway down the page. So the definition of salutary neglect is Great Britain's unintended policies. So understand that's an unintended policy. It's not really a policy at all. To allow its American colonies to develop independently, politically, socially, and economically from Great Britain. Part of that definition needs to include the different phases of salutary neglect. So you have 3 different phases down here, so do take note of that. Right, so this explains a lot of salutary neglect, basically explains a lot of how tensions are later going to develop between the colonies and Great Britain once we get to the Treaty of Paris of 1763. Now, the Treaty of Paris of 1763 was a finalization of the war between France and Great Britain from the French Indian War, or the War of 1763, or sometimes referred to as the 7 Years' War. French Indian War is what it's most commonly referred to. From 1607, when colonies first started getting established in British America, the eastern seaboard, the 13 colonies from that point forward, from 1607 to 1763, they were, to some degree, depending on which colony you're talking about, some more than others, left alone. There were laws put on the books like the Navigation Acts and the Trade Acts, which basically say that if you're going to trade with any other nation, you have to use British ships and you have to use British merchants. Those laws were rarely enforced. There were never direct taxes put on the colonists as well. During this time, because of the distance and because England still really was not a stable nation state, there was still a lot of internal strife, religious strife, political strife. And then they also had external factors to deal with. They were always potentially being threatened by the French and sometimes being attacked by the French or the Spanish. So they didn't have time to really govern their colonies in the way that an empire should perhaps govern their colonies. As a result of that neglect, salutary neglect, the colonies really develop a very independent sense of self from Great Britain and from each other. Understand that they feel like they are separate political entities, sometimes described as provinces, as they are established as colonies, whenever that is, between 1607 and 1763. After that war, Britain now has what is referred to as the time and the need to deal with its colonies. It has the time because a lot of its internal strife has been resolved. It has now dealt a firm blow to both of its main enemies through that war, the French and the Spanish, as well as pushed back the Native American threat in the Ohio Valley, just west of the Appalachian Mountains. So they have the time, right? They also have a need. Wars, like all wars, are very expensive, including the one that we're looking at, the French Indian War. They are heavily in debt, and these colonies do cost more money. The empire has grown significantly as a result of the land that was acquired as a result of this war for Great Britain. So the empire itself is becoming more costly. They have to begin taxing the colonies from their perspective. So they begin imposing taxes, enforcing laws, and this is going to, post-1763, after the French Indian War, is going to initiate conflict. So because the colonists don't mind paying taxes, they don't mind abiding by laws, however, they do, given their history of governing themselves for all of that time prior to the French Indian War feel that they should have representation in Parliament and through the entire process of how laws and taxes are implemented and enforced. So from 1763 to 1776, what you're going to have is a buildup of tension between the colonies and Great Britain that is ultimately going to lead slowly towards first revolt and then independence. So do take note of that. I just want to make sure you get the big picture as you're going through this. And basically, you're looking at the Puritans, because it's the Puritans settle in New Plymouth and that region, which is later going to become Massachusetts. And then you're also looking at Massachusetts itself. It's not a coincidence that the hotbed of the Revolution occurs there, the origins of the Revolution. So if you think about the American Revolution, of the Boston Massacre, the Boston Tea Party, Sons of Liberty, John Adams, Sam Adams, those are two different people, right? They're cousins, two different people. They're both from Massachusetts, right? A lot of the American Revolution is going to emanate from this region. These people have a history of not necessarily defying authority, but at least questioning authority and defying authority if need be. So there is a culture of independence in this area. So it does make sense that this region, Massachusetts region, New England, broadly speaking, is going to lead the revolution. And kind of bring all the other colonies with it as they move towards independence. Anyway, that's a little longer than I wanted to go for the overview, but I want to make sure that you kind of see the big picture as you are going through this material. All right, take care. Let me know if you have any questions. Adios.